I think that leaders are exactly that. And that's how I see it. Leaders have no barriers. The problem is that leaders are not necessarily able to get into positions of power and formal authority. The idea is that if we could find leaders and then provide them with tools to be able to reach a bigger audience and help other leaders come up, then I think we will have accomplished a lot.
What is our communication strategy to engage people with what we're doing, the ideals that Benazir had? How can we reach out and use social media in a positive way, which I feel very, very strongly that we can and we need to make that happen and not be so insular, but create these global networks of people who are having dialogues about this.
There's lots of creative ways that we can put people in dialogue, and we've proven that. There's a lot of brain power that's assembled across just this area that we're in, and providing them a time and a space and just announcing it, and it's just a matter of organizing it. It's very, very easy to do.
Honestly, from a tech world, we'd call it network effects. That is really very powerful, because suddenly you're not just a single voice, you are a group of voices. And that gives you strength that, perhaps you'll find a confidant as well. But it really helps you scale your impact.
You can teach the habits of action early, so that, and even they're not going to change the great world, they can change little parts of their world, because it's really important to think about how in this environment we can get help to people who win elections and get them to actually implement what they want to do and give them the tools to have that happen. We need to figure out how they interact with the bureaucracy so that we are effective in making sure that the bureaucracy reacts to whoever leads. Because if you don't do that, no amount of getting you elected is going to do any good.
Yeah. But the point is that there are ways to move the service, and people are certainly more informed and feel that they are more empowered to be able to speak to superiors in a certain way.
They're done here in a year, but can we provide them with a support system or resources or some form of webinars that allow them to build certain skill sets that maybe they didn't get to in the year that they were here?
I'm the Associate Director of the MPA programs within Harvard Kennedy School, which includes the mid-career program, of which Maroof is proudly a part for us, and the Myerson program, who are those same students from quote-unquote developing countries. The mid-careers who think about coming to Harvard Kennedy School, at the point at which they're thinking about applying, they can't even think about how could I possibly get away for the year. And then at the end, they do feel like I have a lifetime of learning that I would love to continue here. For the people who have about 12 to 14 years of experience, that's the maximum you could ever possibly think about juggling all the other commitments in your life.
It's actually a cross-section of people from private sector, from NGO, from bureaucracy. And actually, that's a very unique environment, because to cultivate those kind of partnerships and to cultivate that kind of cross-functional, interdisciplinary approaches that are very much needed in today's world.
There's a multiplier effect. Mm-hmm. I mean, one person goes back and they influence many others, particularly if they have leadership qualities. Mm-hmm. And also the example that is set, it can be very, very influential. Women are very highly educated in almost that entire area, or many parts of that area. In countries like Iran, and if you move to North Africa, I believe Algeria and elsewhere, the women actually outnumber men in universities and colleges.
75% of the women that go through medical school actually don't go and practice, right? And so that is a very large number, but here's some hope. And that is through social entrepreneurship. There's actually a platform where telemedicine is being used as a vehicle to have these women provide healthcare services in rural areas from their home.
I got it.
The importance of establishing a network, giving them the tools and also the contacts so that they can establish a network. Saying that they have, one of the things of accepting this fellowship is that you have to go back and commit to make a difference in your community. That means reaching out to people and women. I mean, a lot of it's done on a very, very basic level, but I think a lot of the contacts that we can provide, as a class and as a community.
So I think one of the things that we really could do is, yes, take these fellows, send them back, but really also, we also get very senior level people here, at least at the Kennedy School, who probably are the ministers, and we get, sort of the executive education program, which costs like $10,000 a week to come to or whatever. There are senior people there. So what we could be doing is plugging into those senior people and saying, you have to have room for engagement. You have to be able to talk to the guys in your own offices. There's probably a lot of knowledge there that you are not tapping into.
We actually developed an atmospheric water generator, which basically extracts water from thin air and filters it. The extraction is not really that complicated. It's just a dehumidifier, but the filtration is quite complex. But what we did was actually conduct webinars in 5 or 6 top universities, and basically got interns that we spend weekly many hours with to essentially teach them how to design solutions for a problem.
And water has, as we both know, large-scale projects and little projects. Women spend millions of hours searching for water, and it's the women who spend the time looking for water. So if you were thinking of a project that affects women and that you could engage governments about, and that is not directly on women, but by doing it would empower women and therefore is subtle, it's water.
And journalists who might be willing to write about it, be willing to blog about it, so that, a fellow goes back and starts as influence. How can we be connecting them with people who are influencers in other realms, in other public realms that can be reporting and getting the news out?
You don't have to put any money into finding the people. They've already been produced by Harvard, Boston College, Boston University, Lesley, Simmons, whatever. They're already here. You get them together every 6 months or every 2 months. You work them. They get to know one another. You focus on values with them. You focus on some training with them if you want. You put money into nice food so they come. Kids love food. And no, seriously.
Yeah.
And they get to know one another. You give them a project, which is a good idea because I think you get to know one another best through a project. It can be a project in Boston. It can be a project in Boston that is related to something in their own country or something that's related to some public policy that affects their country.
Taking the results of all the conversation we've had today, the morning, the afternoon, the first panel, what's been going on with the second panel, if I tried to rank the things which roughly speaking, in a consensus conversation, seem the most important in terms of creating better and more leadership, and especially women. It's not about a one-year academic fellowship. It's about networks. The principal thing was for them to meet people, gain a sense of a broader connection to people. And what I would want to see and recommend that we would want to see is that we use our scarce resources to focus on creating lasting reciprocal affiliation between the networks and potential leaders and institutions.